Welcome to Macroscope. Today, we're going to talk about the silent shift from ownership to permanent renting, where inflation, debt, and easy money are quietly restructuring the economy. We are examining how central bank policy, rising prices, and financial incentives are pushing ordinary people away from owning assets and toward a life of endless payments and dependency.
Imagine a world where you do not own the house you sleep in, the car you drive to work, or even the device you are holding right now. Imagine a reality where every aspect of your life is a monthly subscription and everything you use belongs to a faceless corporation. This is not a scene from a science fiction movie set in the distant future. It is the economic reality unfolding across America right at this very moment. Travel back in time to a quiet American suburb in 1960. You can picture the scene with fresh-cut grass and families gathering in backyards that they actually owned. In that era, a local baker or a factory worker could pay off a home mortgage with just 3 years of their annual wages. It was a time when hard work translated directly into ownership. Now, fast forward to the year 2025. Picture a high-level software engineer sitting in a glass tower in a major city. Despite working longer hours and producing more value, this engineer now requires 15 years of perfect savings to afford that same standard of living. Something fundamental has broken in the machinery of the global economy. If you look at a long-term chart of the United States economy, you will see two lines moving together in perfect harmony for decades. Those lines represent productivity and hourly wages. For a long time, as workers became more efficient, they got paid more. But in 1971, something snapped. The lines separated in a way that would change history forever. Productivity continued to soar to the heavens, driven by technology and innovation, while the real wages of the American worker fell flat on the ground. The massive gap between those two lines represents trillions of dollars that were quietly siphoned away from the middle class. It marks the moment money stopped being a store of value and became a tool of transfer. We are now witnessing the systematic dismantling of the American dream. We are watching the end of the age of ownership and the beginning of the great dispossession. To understand how this dispossession happens, we must look at the source of the river. We must look at the Federal Reserve. When the news headlines announce that the central bank is injecting $40 billion into the economy, many people imagine a rain of banknotes falling on every citizen equally. But that is a dangerous illusion. The new money does not appear in the mailbox of a school teacher in Ohio or a nurse in Texas. It does not help the housewife standing in the checkout line worrying about the price of eggs. Instead, that money appears instantly on the glowing screens of the largest financial institutions in New York. This is a mechanism known as the Cantillon effect. It is named after an 18th century economist who realized a simple but terrifying truth: money is not neutral. The specific path that new money travels determines who wins and who loses. Who gets the money first matters more than how much money is created. Picture a trading floor on Wall Street. The air is thick with tension and the hum of high-speed servers. When the Federal Reserve engages in what they call liquidity injections or reserve management, they are essentially handing fresh cash to primary dealers and major banks. These bankers and hedge fund managers suddenly have billions of dollars in new purchasing power. They do not use this money to buy groceries or pay for basic utilities. They use it to hunt for yield. They pour this capital into the stock market, pushing indices to record highs even when the real economy is struggling. They buy corporate bonds, and most destructively for the average citizen, they buy real estate. Now, shift your gaze from the skyscrapers of Manhattan to a modest neighborhood in the suburbs. A young couple is parking their car in front of a starter home. They have saved for 5 years. They have skipped vacations and budget meals to build a down payment. They have done everything right. But when they walk into the open house, they find they are not competing with other families. They are competing against a wall of capital that originated from the central bank. The price of the house is bid up higher and higher until the couple is forced to walk away. The money printed by the central bank inflated the asset price before it ever reached the wages of the working class. By the time this new money finally trickles down to the rest of the economy, it has changed form. It is no longer an opportunity, it is a burden. When the money finally circulates to the local mechanic or the restaurant server, it simply manifests as higher prices for survival. The wealthy received the money when it had high purchasing power and used it to buy assets. The poor and the middle class receive the money only after prices have already risen. This explains the great paradox of our time. You might see factories closing and small businesses struggling on Main Street, yet the stock market hits a new all-time high. This is not a contradiction. It is the direct result of monetary policy. The system is designed to inflate the value of assets held by the rich while devaluing the currency held by the poor. Therefore, we must redefine how we think about inflation. Inflation is not merely the inconvenience of paying more for gasoline or milk. That is just the symptom. The true definition of inflation in this era is a massive, silent transfer of wealth. It is a siphon that sucks purchasing power from the savings accounts of the middle class and deposits it into the asset portfolios of the elite. If you hold cash, you are the victim of this theft. If you hold assets, you are the beneficiary. This is not a bug in the system. It is a feature. And it is this feature that has turned the housing market into a casino where the chips are free for the house, but expensive for everyone else.
The river of cheap money created by central banks does not simply evaporate into the atmosphere. It solidifies into concrete, timber, and land. In the past, the primary buyer of a single-family home in America was a family looking for a place to build a life. Today, that buyer is increasingly likely to be a limited liability company managed by an algorithm. We are witnessing the industrialization of the American neighborhood. To understand this transformation, you must look at the giants that have entered the arena. Companies like Blackstone and other massive private equity firms have fundamentally changed the logic of housing. For decades, Wall Street viewed residential homes as messy and difficult to manage. It was hard to fix a leaking roof in Ohio when your office was in New York. But technology and cheap capital changed the equation. After the financial crisis of 2008 and accelerating wildly through the inflationary period of the 2020s, these firms realized that housing was the ultimate inflation hedge. If the dollar loses value, the house retains it. If the population grows, the demand for shelter is non-negotiable. Consider the experience of a man named Mark standing on the steps of a county courthouse in a sun-drenched suburb of Phoenix. He has a pre-approved mortgage letter in his pocket, damp with sweat. He is trying to buy a foreclosed home, a fixer-upper that could be the entry point for his family into the middle class. The auctioneer starts the bidding. Mark shouts out his price, feeling a surge of hope. But then, a man in a sharp suit, standing quietly in the corner, raises a finger. He does not check with a spouse. He does not worry about the inspection. He offers a price significantly higher, all cash, closing in 24 hours. Mark cannot compete with a checkbook that runs deep into the billions. The gavel falls, and the home disappears into a corporate portfolio. Mark gets in his car and drives back to his rental apartment, unaware that he just lost a battle against a sovereign wealth fund. This scene repeats thousands of times a day across the Sun Belt. In cities like Atlanta, Charlotte, and Phoenix, the statistics are staggering. In certain zip codes, institutional investors have purchased more than 30 to 40% of the available housing stock. They are not buying these homes to flip them for a quick profit. They are buying them to hold forever. They're turning entire communities into permanent rental zones. When a single entity owns a significant percentage of a neighborhood, the rules of the free market begin to distort. They gain the power to set the floor for rental prices. If a family cannot afford to buy because the investors have driven up the purchase price, they are forced to rent. And who do they rent from? Often the very same entities that outbid them. It's a closed-loop system designed to extract maximum yield from the monthly wages of the local population. This strategy is often wrapped in a narrative of convenience. Marketing brochures from these firms speak of a leasehood society or the flexibility of renting. They suggest that ownership is a burden and that renting is a modern freedom. But this is a calculated rebranding of serfdom. When you look at the balance sheets of these mega corporations, you see clearly what they value. They refer to these homes not as communities, but as asset-backed securities. They view the tenants not as neighbors, but as recurring revenue streams similar to a software subscription. The operational efficiency of these new landlords is clinical and cold. Gone is the local landlord who might wait a few extra days for rent if you lost your job. In his place is an automated system that issues eviction notices the moment a payment is missed. Maintenance requests are routed through call centers thousands of miles away. The human element has been stripped away, leaving only the financial imperative. The rise of the corporate landlord marks a profound shift in the social contract. For 2 centuries, the United States built its stability on a wide base of property owners. Ownership gave people a stake in their community and a buffer against economic hardship. By transferring millions of homes from individuals to institutions, the economy is reverting to a feudal structure, where a small elite owns the land and the vast majority toil to pay for the privilege of existing upon it. The for sale signs are disappearing, replaced by for lease, and with them goes the primary vehicle for wealth creation for the average family.
The psychological weight of this economic shift falls heaviest on the shoulders of the younger generation. Sociologists have begun to label them Generation Rent, but the title hides the deep emotional scar tissue forming beneath the surface. For thousands of years, the concept of a home was synonymous with a sanctuary, a place where one could retreat from the world and build a future. But for millions of young Americans today, a home is no longer a fortress. It is a temporary service that can be revoked at the expiration of a 12-month lease. This lack of permanence is rewriting the script of human life. Walk through a modern apartment complex in a bustling city. Behind the thin walls, you will find couples in their 30s who are delaying marriage. You will find empty spare rooms that should be nurseries, but instead remain storage spaces. The hesitation to start a family is not merely a cultural shift or a desire for freedom. It is a primal reaction to instability. The nesting instinct is powerful, but it requires a nest. It is terrifying to bring a child into the world when you know that a landlord could force you to uproot your life with just 30 days of notice. The birth rate is crashing not just because children are expensive, but because the parents feel like guests in their own lives. The fragility of this existence is compounded by the new technology of extraction. In the past, a rent increase was a negotiation between a human owner and a human tenant. Today, the price of shelter is dictated by yield optimization software. Imagine receiving a notification on your phone at 2 in the morning. It is an automated email stating that your rent will increase by 20% next month. This figure was not calculated based on the landlord's rising costs. It was calculated by an algorithm that analyzed data from thousands of other units to determine the absolute maximum amount you can pay before you break. This leads to a profound sense of anxiety that permeates daily life. You cannot plant a garden because you might not be there to see it bloom. You cannot paint the walls or renovate the kitchen because you are merely paying off someone else's asset. The emotional connection to the community is severed. Why join the local school board or volunteer at the neighborhood park if you are likely to be priced out of the zip code next year? The social fabric begins to fray as neighbors become strangers passing in the hallway, all of them temporary, all of them drifting. Defenders of this new economy often point to Europe as a model. They say that in countries like Germany, renting is the norm and people are happy. However, this comparison leaves out a critical and dangerous detail. In Berlin or Munich, a tenant is protected by robust laws that make renting nearly as secure as owning. A German family can live in the same rented apartment for 40 years, raising children and grandchildren without fear of eviction or arbitrary price hikes. The United States and the United Kingdom are currently adopting the worst of both worlds. We are moving toward a society where the majority rent like Europeans, but with the ruthless lack of protection typical of the American market. We are importing the high costs and the permanent payments of a renter's society, but we have stripped away the security and dignity that makes such a system livable.
The result is a population that is squeezed from both sides. They are denied the wealth-building power of ownership, yet they are also denied the peace of mind of a protected tenancy. They are trapped in a state of perpetual financial adolescence, generating wealth for a landlord class while their own roots are never allowed to take hold in the soil.
How does an individual fight back against a financial system that seems designed to turn them into a permanent tenant? The answer does not lie in waiting for a politician to save you or for a new law to reverse decades of monetary policy. The answer lies in understanding the rules of the game and refusing to be a passive victim. The first and most critical step is to change your relationship with money itself. You must realize that in an era of endless liquidity injections, cash is not a safe harbor. It is a melting ice cube. While short-term treasury bills or high-yield savings accounts might offer a temporary shelter, they are not a long-term solution to the devaluation of your labor. The system is punishing savers who hoard currency and rewarding debtors who hold assets. Therefore, the strategy for survival is to convert your depreciating currency into hard assets as quickly and responsibly as possible. This is the only shield against the Cantillon effect. You must own things that cannot be printed by a central bank committee. This does not mean you need millions of dollars to start. It means shifting your mindset from consumption to accumulation. Look for assets that have finite scarcity. Gold and silver have served this purpose for 5,000 years because they are the ultimate hedge against the debasement of paper money. Look at real estate not just as a dream home, but as a defensive fortification. Even a small condominium or a plot of land in a developing area is a stake in the ground that institutional investors cannot easily take away from you. Look at the stock market not as a casino for gambling on hype, but as a way to own a piece of productive businesses that sell essential goods like energy, food, and materials. These are the assets that float when the tide of inflation rises, while cash is left to drown. However, acquiring assets requires capital, and capital comes from income. This brings us to the second pillar of resistance, which is the aggressive upgrade of your own human capital. We have seen the chart where productivity rises while wages stagnate. To escape this trap, you must become an outlier. In a labor market that is being squeezed by both automation and inflation, average skills will yield below average results. You must pivot to industries where value is undeniable and scalable. Whether it is mastering a trade that is in desperate shortage or learning high-leverage digital skills, your primary goal must be to increase your earning power so that you have a surplus. And the moment you generate that surplus, you must deploy it into assets before inflation eats it alive. The path forward is not easy, and it is not fair. The economic landscape has been tilted against the common man, but sitting on the sidelines is no longer an option. The world is bifurcating into two distinct classes. There are those who own the capital, the land and the businesses, and there are those who pay rent to use them. The system is quietly but efficiently designed to make you a new kind of serf, tethered to a subscription for your very existence. The only form of rebellion that matters is ownership. You must claw your way onto the property ladder. You must secure your own financial sovereignty. You must own real things before the window of opportunity closes forever. The age of the renter is here, but you do not have to accept the lease.